Hello, thank you for joining our webinar. Today I want to talk about date functions in the formula field, and I want to show you how you can use a combination of functions like dateFormat, todayDate, and getTime. I want to start with the todayDate function. Let's go to the formula field. Take a look at the formula we have there. And as you can see, the formula running here in this field is combination of two functions. First one is todayDate, and the second one is dateFormat function. Let me show you why I use these two functions together. Let's delete the part which belongs to dateFormat function. As you can see, right now we have only todayDate function here, which returns you today's date actually. And you can see that this function returns you today's date in this long format. It's showing you day of the week, month, the date itself, time zone you're in, and yeah, Central European summertime, and also the description for the time zone. I believe this format is too long to use in web calculators, although it is good in some points, and for some purposes it is nice to use such format, but regularly you want to present the date in a much shorter format. So I recommend you to always use today's date with combination of dateFormat function to present the date as you want it to see in your calculator. Let's add dateFormat function here. And then we need to specify the format we need in our calculator. You can use a custom format by simply typing in days, months, and years. Don't forget the bracket at the end. And as you can see, now the date is presented in custom format. You can also choose another one by changing months and days. So you see it's pretty simple. And there are also some formats which are predefined, and you can find them on this page. This page is presented in our documentation in date field section, so you can find it on this link. All the formats for the date functions can be found on this link. And let me show one of the predefined formats, which is called full date. I think this format is very nice because it shows you day of the week, month with the day, and the year. I think it's pretty much, I think it's very presentable for your calculators. And now I would like to move on to the getTime function and show you, I believe, the most important function to work with the date fields in Calculoid. This function is pretty simple, and what it does, it shows you the date presented in brackets here in absolute date format. Absolute date format is a format presented in milliseconds from 1970. To be honest with you, I don't know why it is presented in milliseconds from 1970, but this is how it works. So let me show you how this function, getTime function, will present today's date in this format. Let's type in getTime and put here today's date. And as you can see, this is the 3rd of September 2019, presented in milliseconds from 1970. If I also save the changes and reload the page, it will change a little bit. So this is the milliseconds going from 1970, and it's always uploading. Maybe in the editor it's not seen, but once it's uploaded on the web, this number will always keep changing because of the amount of milliseconds gone from 1970 is changing every millisecond. Yeah, and why I believe this is the most important function to work with the date fields, because this function allows you to transfer the date in a basic number and then to make any kind of calculations you need. Uh, in this in this calculator, for example, I used a simple function which counts the number of days which has gone from the start date till today. And for example, you can use also this function for more complicated calculations. Like, for example, you want to know how many, let's say you have like a start date and end date, and you need to know the difference between them. It is pretty simple to use the getTime function in this case. Or maybe you need to count percentages based on the date. It's also possible with this getTime function. And how it works, it's very easy. You just take a date you need, transfer it to the absolute date format using the getTime function, and then use basic math. So, for example, I can show you how you can use getTime function instead of dateAdd function, which actually just adds the amount of days, months, or years to the current date. You can also do this with getTime function. You can simply add, let's say you want to add 1 day, so this should be 60,000 and to present it in a real date format, we will need the date format function, and here we need to define the format we want to use here. So as you can see, I've added 1 day using the getTime function. Of course, in this case, it's much easier to use the dateAdd function, same as if you want to take a couple of days from the today's date, it's easier to use dateDeduct function. But if you want to calculate, for example, let's say we want to first calculate the difference between the start date and today's date, and then count the number of percentage it takes from a year. Let me show this. We need to delete the date format function. So here we have our today's date. Now we need to take from it the start date here. So we use getTime with the start date. We can see the difference now. And then I'll put these two functions in brackets, because now we need to know how many days it is actually. And you need to divide this by 1000, then 60, then 60, then 24. And the reason I'm dividing these by 1000 is to get seconds from milliseconds, dividing by 60 to get minutes, by 60 to get hours, and by 24 to get the days. And I believe this can be replaced with a number 86 million something. I'm not sure about this right now, so I'm just typing it like this. And now we have that the difference between our start date and today's date is 14 days. So now we can take this formula in brackets and then simply divide this by 365. Yep. Just happened. Okay, never mind, we can delete these brackets and I believe this should work. No. Oh, I'm sorry. This is my very unprofessional fault. Here we can see basically 3.8%. If we will multiply this by 100, we will be able to see that this is 3.8% basically. And also, to present it as percentage, we can add the percentage sign here. So now we know that the difference between two dates presented here at the top is actually 3.8% of a year. So the reason I was showing this is to show you that the getTime function is really the most important one if you need to make any calculations with the date. And the calculations, it's not just about adding some days or taking some days from your number. If you require percentages, if you require dividing one date by another, or etc., like really combined calculations. I wouldn't say hard, but they're quite complex calculations, I would say. You need to use the getTime function. And also this function can be used for general adding and taking operations with the dates. It is also possible. However, I believe it's better to divide here that getTime function is for complex calculations with dates, and date add and date deduct functions are for simple calculations like adding a couple of days or taking a couple of days from the date chosen from a user. And also what I wanted to present in this webinar, that it is really nice to use todayDate function to always have today's actual date in your calculator. So there is no need for your clients, for your final users, to choose the date manually, and it can prevent them from making errors with the choice. And it is also nice because they're just taken off one step, and that is much easier for them to use your calculator. So this is basically it for today, and if you have some questions, I'm free to answer it. Okay, well, no questions. Thank you for joining our webinar today, and have a nice day. Bye.